The one-time TAMP for Grandparents program offers $1,000 to grandparents if they have grandchildren on TAMP and don't have significant assets or make more than twice the poverty level. Unemployment benefits. Texans who are temporarily out of work through no fault of their own may qualify for unemployment benefits. But no one should just quit his or her job and hope for benefits. Only those who were laid off, who were downsized, or who lost a job due to a reduction in force meet the requirements for benefits. Individuals fired for work-related misconduct or inadequate performance also do not qualify. The Texas Workforce Commission bases the weekly unemployment benefit amount on the individual's highest past quarterly earnings up to $465 per week maximum. Recipients are eligible for benefits for 52 weeks. The COVID-19 pandemic greatly accelerated the number of Texans seeking unemployment benefits, and as a result, the state temporarily expanded the duration of coverage an extra 13 weeks as long as the recipient is actively looking for work. Legislation passed in 2017 also renders anyone who fails a drug test ineligible for benefits for a month until the person passes another drug test. See Great Texas Political Debates. Workers' compensation. If you are injured on the job, you are likely entitled to paid medical care, and you have the right to keep income and medical benefits. If you are killed on the job, your beneficiaries may be entitled to death and burial benefits. These benefits are called workers' compensation. Texas leads the nation in worker fatalities. At the top of the list receiving these benefits are truck drivers, many in the oil patch in West Texas, and construction trades, 534 in 2017, followed by the California at 376. The Texas Division of Workers' Compensation is responsible for the distribution of these benefits. The agency denies nearly half of all claims when they are first filed. However, even when the claims are brought to trial, workers lose most of the time. They throw these workers away like tissue paper. They're nothing more than a used Kleenex, said one employment attorney. Although the state has fined businesses for failing to report injuries, the fines are generally small. 14.3 Immigration and Border Security. Texas settled by wave after wave of immigrants shares a longer contiguous border with another country than any other state in the Union. The first undocumented immigration to Texas was Anglo immigration from the United States into what was then Mexico in 1830. A Mexican colonial encountered several immigrants, checked them for passports, and finding no proper documentation, ordered them to leave. Immigration is driving Texas population growth as more than 786,000 legal immigrants arrived in Texas between 2010 and 2018, second only to Florida, but ahead of California. 17% of the state's total population as of 2019. Texas had just over 4.6 million foreign-born residents, up from 2.9 million in 2000. Most, 68%, were from Mexico and Central America, but a sizable group from Asia, 22%, has driven much of the growth. More than one-third have become naturalized citizens. Texas also has the second largest undocumented immigration population, about 1.8 million, second only to California. Most of these immigrants come from Mexico, followed by other Central American countries. Approximately 200,000 were under 17, and 834 Texas kids lived with one or more parents who is undocumented. Half of the incoming undocumented immigrants are 25 to 45 years old, and more than half are male. Economic impact. The effect of undocumented immigrants on the economy brings up a contentious point. But most agree that immigrants do displace workers for low-wage jobs while also creating new jobs by buying goods and services. According to the Federation for American Immigration Reform, undocumented immigrants cost Texas taxpayers $12.1 billion in 2018 for education, healthcare costs, and policing, but contributed $1.27 billion to economic output in wages, salary, and business earnings. Other figures from 2020 show that every $1 that the state spends on undocumented immigrants, it brings in $1.21, generating $427 million more than they cost the state, excluding healthcare costs. Undocumented immigrants may also pay taxes for services they can never use, especially Social Security or Medicare taxes. They often live in the shadows and neglect proper health care or educational opportunities, hoping not to get stopped by police or get turned in by neighbors. They may face abuse or exploitation as they are hired under the table for wages that are lower than those of the other workers. This is especially the case in labor-intensive industries like construction. They may be forced to live in segregated, substantiated housing because they do not want to risk obtaining official documentation for a bank loan. Children of undocumented immigrants cannot be denied access to public schools by federal law. Regardless of the immigration status of the parents, as held by the U.S. Supreme Court in Plyer v. Doe, 1982, 20% of undocumented immigrants speak English very well, but more than half speak the language not well or not at all. Difficulties with English may increase the cost of educating those students who need expanded translation assistance or instruction in English. Public opinion and state laws. Texans ranked undocumented immigration 19% and border security 145% as the two most important problems facing the state in 2019, with Republicans 30% for immigration and 27% for border security, believing both to be more important than Democrats 9% and 3% respectively. While legal immigrants are screened prior to entering the country, undocumented immigrants, of course, bypass federal screening, raising concerns that criminals may penetrate the long border. In 2005, Victor Reyes assaulted, shot, and killed a 25-year-old Houston man at random who had stopped at a red light. Reyes was an undocumented immigrant who had been deported 4 times between 2003 and 2010 and had a criminal record that included burglary and illegal entry into the country. During a violent shootout, Reyes then killed 2 people and wounded another 3 before sheriff's deputies shot him. This senseless killing rallied Republicans who passed legislation known as Senate Bill 4. This law prohibits local government from creating a safe havens for undocumented immigrants known as sanctuary cities, where local governments choose not to comply with federal requests to detain suspects, illegal immigrants in local jails, and allows law enforcement to ask about the immigration status of detained individuals, called the Show Me Your Papers provision. Opponents of the law argued that it unfairly targets racial minorities and cripples the relationship between law enforcement and immigrant communities. Though tough talk on illegal immigration does not always translate to all sectors in Texas, business interests have partnered with immigration activists to limit Texas enforcement of laws that prevent industries from hiring undocumented workers through programs like E-Verify. An executive order signed by Governor Rick Perry places the Texas Workforce Commission in charge of enforcing a rule that bans undocumented immigrants from working directly for the state through its agencies or universities. Workers live in the shadows in this underground labor market where a don't ask, don't tell system allows employers to hire these immigrants without fear of punishment. And most employers are screened with E-Verify. Only 32% of hires were screened with E-Verify in 2017. Still, anyone who hires an undocumented immigrant faces potential civil fines, although generally only businesses with multiple violations are fined. Deportations and border security. Although immigration and border security issues fall under federal authority, aggressive politics and the practical need for solutions have led to the state to step in frequently. Led by Republican Governor Greg Abbott, lawmakers have annually added $800 million to border security efforts, including a new equipment, facilities, and law enforcement officers. Critics claim that this is a blank check for further increases in funds and that the funds are not needed because they reflect on the overreaction to the problems along the Texas border. The governor also agreed to commit at least 1,000 National Guard troops to the border with Mexico in response to a call from President Trump to clamp down on illegal immigration at a cost of approximately $12 million per month. Critics claim that this is wasteful since border crossings are at a 40-year low, and some further charge that all this action is nothing but a publicity stunt. Deportations are on the rise in major Texas cities after President Trump signed an executive order expanding the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, focus on any immigrant in the United States. In contrast, earlier efforts narrowly prioritized arrest of those convicted of serious crimes. ICE arrests have ramped up across Texas, which leads the nation arrest to 128,000 compared to 71,000 in second place, California, including more than the 280 employees of North Texas Texas Telecommunications Repair Company, the largest in a decade from 2000 to 2018. Less than 30% of immigrants facing removal from Texas had legal representation. 68% of those cases ended up with a removal order, compared to lower percentages in states where immigrants were more likely to have an attorney. This is the end of Chapter 14, Part 1.